Prince Andrew in new secrecy row as bombshell files about his secretive trade trips locked thanks to bizarre royal rule. The Duke of York has come under fire in recent weeks due to his links with a Chinese spy, and now attempts to access files about his trade career have been repeatedly blocked. Prince Andrew has been embroiled in a new secrecy scandal after files about his secretive trade trips representing the UK have been locked until 2065 thanks to a bizarre royal rule. Researchers have been attempting to find out more about his work when he flew across the globe to boost investment. He forged close links with the Middle East, which has led to him reportedly being offered the use of a palace in Abu Dhabi. And he also became good friends with a suspected Chinese spy who has now been turfed out of the country on suspicion of spying for the hostile state. Hello viewers, please remember to subscribe and click on the notifications bell icon, so you will be notified whenever we upload new cookies about the British royal family. The Foreign Office hold files on his work as an ambassador but have refused to release them, giving a variety of excuses over this. Author Andrew Loney is releasing a biography of the Duke of York next week and says he was told that the files could not be made public until 2065. There is a general rule that papers related to members of the royal family must remain closed until 105 years after their birth. But last week, a spokesperson for the UK Information Commissioner's Office said, "There's nothing in the Freedom of Information Act about that," adding that they were not aware of anything preventing the files release under any other legislation. A spokesperson for the Foreign Office said, "We take our obligations under the Freedom of Information Act very seriously, and all timeframes are clearly set out in the legislation." Mr. Loney insisted in The Guardian that the UK government was covering up for Andrew. He is trying to get access to papers detailing who accompanied the prince on his trade trips after he was accused of using his position and publicly funded trips abroad for private business deals. Earlier this month, an alleged Chinese spy was revealed to be his associate and had an unusual degree of trust with him. It sparked a new row and ended with Andrew not joining the royal family for their Christmas celebrations at Sandringham last week. Other royal files, including those in the prince previously open for decades, have been reclosed by the National Archives after an internal review. Government papers are usually released after 20 years under the Public Records Act, but there are exemptions for some royals, such as those covering discussions with the monarch, the heir, and second in line to the throne, as well as exemptions for national security prejudice to the conduct of public affairs or personal information. The National Archives releases documents every year containing letters or other information about the late Queen, her sister Princess Margaret, or other members of the royal family, within 105 years of their birth. Mr. Loney said that numerous excuses have been used to block his requests, including saying they don't exist, and it is too expensive to search them. A spokesperson for the National Archives said, "When we become aware that open records may contain information that comes under one or more of the exemptions within the FOI Act, e.g. personal information, those records have their access status amended to access under review to allow for their review under the FOI Act." Prince Andrew avoids injury after losing control of horse near Royal Lodge home. Prince Andrew narrowly avoided a potentially dangerous accident near his Royal Lodge home. The disgraced prince nearly fell off his horse during a Monday morning ride through the Windsor estate as the Duke of York's black mare showed signs of distress. The horse threw its head in the air and thrashed around, appearing to catch the Duke by surprise and knock him off balance, leaving him clinging to the reins, reports GB News. After a jittery few minutes spent grappling with the mare, the king's brother, a skilled horseman, calmed the frightened animal by leaning back and stabilizing himself. Prince Andrew, who wore a black riding helmet and khaki rainproof jacket, was then able to continue on his way. Andrew has been keeping a low profile amid his bitter feud with King Charles over Royal Lodge. He has been told by the king to leave Royal Lodge and move into more affordable accommodation. Charles suggested Andrew downsize to Frogmore Cottage, the former home of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Like the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Andrew lost his right to taxpayer-funded security after being stripped of his royal duties. Earlier this month, the Duke was told his reported £1 million a year allowance would also be withdrawn. An updated biography by royal commentator Robert Hardman alleged the monarch instructed his keeper of the Privy Purse to sever Andrew's annual personal allowance. He relied on the allowance to fund his living expenses and security team. However, the Duke has since convinced palace authorities to let him stay as he is able to cover the costs himself, according to reports in the Times. Princess Beatrice and Edoardo Mapelli Mozz's daughter, 3, was wrapped up warm against the November chill as she was guided on a pony around the paddock. The tot appears to be following in the footsteps of her family members, including her grandmother, Sarah, Duchess of York, who learnt how to ride a horse from a young age. Even the most confident of riders can come unstuck on occasion, as Andrew, 62, almost took a tumble from his horse when it began to trot vigorously. But the Duke quickly regained composure without falling as the animal settled during its morning walk. Andrew and Sarah reside at nearby Royal Lodge, and despite calls from his brother, the King, to downsize amid the rising renovations for the Grade 2 listed property, the Duke has reportedly found the means to cover the costs himself. Citing a source, author Robert Hardman revealed in an updated version of his biography, Charles III, New King, New Court. The inside story, the Duke is no longer a financial burden on the King, confirms one familiar with the situation. He claims to have found other sources of income related to his contacts in international trade, sufficient to cover all his costs, which would be a welcome outcome for all parties if that turns out to be the case. But as to whether this funding can be relied upon in the long term is another matter. Robert also shared why Andrew is determined to remain living at Royal Lodge on the latest episode of Hello, S.A. Right Royal podcast. Meanwhile, little Sienna is set to become a big sister next year as her mother Beatrice is currently pregnant with her second child. The baby is due in early spring, with Buckingham Palace confirming the happy news in October. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like this video and drop comments. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything.